Have you ever wondered what ESG investing is and why you should invest in ESG companies? Hi, this is Mosh, and today I'm going to go through what ESG means, break it down by each category, why you should invest in ESG companies or have a portion of it as part of your portfolio, and my top stock picks for ESG, so make sure you watch to the end. I'll also appreciate if you give this video a like, as this helps with the YouTube algorithm. Firstly, ESG stands for Environmental, Social and Governance. I'll go through what each letter means and the metrics you should look out for when it comes to individual stocks. For me, ESG is the best vision of our future, and I'm very optimistic about the future. Plus, being a scientist, for me, this is a big category, and most of my portfolio weighting is in the ESG category. E stands for environmental. So this goes through companies' impact on the planet. It goes through the climate change policies that each individual company has, greenhouse emissions and their carbon footprint. For me, this is the most important category because climate change is a real issue and it affects millions of people every single year. In my long-term investments, which I'll show you towards the end, I pick companies that are very environmental conscious. For example, Europe has introduced carbon credits. Companies that produce a lot of carbon or CO2, they have to buy carbon credits, and that fund goes towards reducing carbon throughout the world by planting trees or doing various other things. Also, many countries have signed up to the Paris Climate Change Accord. A lot of countries, for example the UK, they're banning petrol and diesel cars by 2030. Norway and Sweden are pretty much 100% renewable energy. So I think the future is definitely there, and it's just really the US and China that need to come on board with this, which they will definitely be doing in the next 5-10 years time. China is starting to invest heavily in renewable energy. How do you find this information? You have to find company sustainability reports, and those sustainability reports should be to a sustainability standard set out by the GRI, which is the Global Reporting Index, or the PRI, which is a United Nations principle for responsible investments. So they're really the official standards that you should be looking for when it comes to sustainability reports. The second part of ESG is S, which stands for social. This tends to be people related or human related. So for example, employee treatment, safety, how they treat the workers, how they develop the workers. One big thing that's happening in the US is diversity. What percentage of ethnic minorities they have working in the company? Are they given equal opportunities? Another key aspect is public stance on political issues. For example, Black Lives Matters, Palestine, poverty around the world, those sorts of things. For me, this is a bit of a tricky one because it's hard to measure. G is for governance, specifically corporate governance. Now, this is really about how the company is run and who it's run by. So for example, one key indicator you should be looking for is a strong board of directors. What I mean by that is, are they competent? Are they looking to reduce the carbon footprint of the companies? Also, the diversity of the board as well. Is it only made up of one ethnicity, or are they inclusive of other people? Another thing is executive bonuses. Especially around the world, this has been quite a thorny issue where the executives are getting like tens of millions bonuses and the yearly wage may be $100,000. That may cause a conflict where the executive is really working for the bonus, not for the actual job. So that could lead to them doing shady things for them to meet the targets to get the bonus. Another thing is potential conflicts of interest. If they're on the board of directors and they're trying to deal with another company or the government, and there's a conflict of interest, that doesn't bode so well for ESG because they may have other agendas. Another thing you have to watch out for is lawsuits. How many lawsuits the company has and specifically what for. If they're doing shady dealings or a cover-up of some sort, like for example the VW diesel scandal, then that's something you really have to watch out for. Lastly is how transparent they are with shareholders. So remember, when you buy a share, you have a voting right. You have a vote in what the company does. If they're not telling you everything that's happening in the company, or they're trying to hide certain aspects, then that doesn't bode so well. Now, the governance section is found in the sustainability report. However, you should really be looking at the annual proxy report, which you generally get from the company. And if you've not invested in the company or not a current shareholder, you can get it through the SEC website by searching for the file type DEF14, DEF14. These are my personal top picks, what I currently hold in my portfolio as my long-term investments. Firstly, iShares Global Clean Energy ETF. It's an ETF, so it's a basket of companies that are based on producing clean energy. I think this is probably one of the best ETFs, especially for renewable energy, because the future is heading that way. Fossil fuels is something countries have to stop, especially to reduce the impact of climate change. And I think consumer sentiment is heading that way as well. People are buying a lot more things now that are environmentally friendly, that they can recycle. We're seeing that shift in sentiment. And remember, if you want a free share worth up to £100 with Trading 212 or free trade, all you have to do is use my link in the box below, deposit £1 and they'll give you a free share worth up to £100. Plus, iShares is run by BlackRock, which is one of the biggest funds in the world. Another ETF is the ESG Developed Countries All Cap by Vanguard. Now, I'm not a big fan of this one. It's for ESG, but it's not really ESG. If you look at the top holdings, and once you start seeing the big banks like JP Morgan and other companies, I don't really believe this is 100% ESG. For me, the individual stocks, firstly is Sunrun. Sunrun produce solar panels around the US. They are one of the biggest solar panel providers, and they recently done a deal with Ford for the F1 pickup trucks, which I think is a really, really great deal. This allows you to charge a car, obviously during the daytime, and the F1 truck can actually power up a home, especially when you have blackouts and power cuts. Next up is Plug Power. Now, Plug Power has been on a bit of a roller coaster journey, up and down throughout this year, but I'm still very bullish on it. They produce hydrogen power. Now, I think hydrogen power market is really underdeveloped. The way you make hydrogen is by a process called electrolysis. So electrolysis is using electricity to break down water so you get oxygen and hydrogen, and that hydrogen you can burn. And when you burn hydrogen, that produces H2O, which is water. I think the hydrogen produced market could be the next big thing for what has happened with electric car vehicles. The electric car vehicle market. For me, I'm still bullish on XPEV and NIO. I think they have a very good holding in China, which is one of the biggest markets. Everyone wants to sell in China. Tesla has a good holding in the US, but I personally think the Tesla stock is way overpriced. I've been saying that for the last year. I did have shares, but I sold out when they entered the S&P 500. Another issue I have with Tesla is I think once the Germans catch up, which they're already doing, for example, the VW group, they're investing heavily in the EV market. BMW, Mercedes, they naturally make better cars and they look better designs. If you look at the new Mercedes electric S-Class, that is so much better than the Tesla Model X. The Germans have been lagging, but I think they're catching up now, and I think they'll still dominate the European markets. Another one, especially the social aspect, is Etsy. Etsy is a platform for small business holders to sell their goods. Handmade goods, handicraft goods. And I think the consumer sentiment is heading more towards that way. So I think it's a really great company and they definitely hit the ESG element across the board for Etsy. Remember, this is not financial advice. These are just my opinions, what I think are great stocks. Investing is about making money, but I also think you should invest in what you believe. I'm passionate about green energy. That's why most of my long-term holdings are in the renewable energy sector. That is the only direction the future can go in for us to have a future. The short-term ups and downs, the noise of the market doesn't bother me. For example, Sunrun and Plug Power I'm currently down on. But as I said, I know in 2, 3, 4, 5, even 5+ years, it's going to be a winner.